Dear confreres, dear sisters, members of the Salesian family, and especially our dear young people, good evening. Thank you for this beautiful opportunity to give the Goodnight talk. I was invited by Father Arvin Abatayo to share some thoughts with you. And October 22 is a special day. Why? Because it is the feast of Saint John Paul II, a saint who belonged to our times, who died in this millennium, in this century. And I can say that he is somebody who has really had a great influence in my life. Not only because he was famous, not only because he's the Pope for many of our years, but for a lot of things, a lot of contribution in my life, like the wonder of the church that grew in my heart, because there are instances when we looked forward to listening to him, to seeing him. As for example, when he came to the Philippines, when I was still a grade school student, and we watched him as he made his trip around the country. And of course, something even more memorable was his encounter with the Philippines, our welcoming him in 1995 for the World Youth Day. And personally, I've had a few encounters, at least two close encounters with Pope St. John Paul II, one of which is there on your screen, that picture where I was greeting him, taking his hand, shaking it. That was on February 14 in 2001. And I was a deacon at that time, or 2002. I was a deacon at that time, preparing myself for priesthood. And I do recall that day very vividly. So that was February 14, 2002, the Thursday after the Ash Wednesday. Usually that day was dedicated, special to the parish priests in the Diocese of Rome, where the Pope is bishop. And they were all welcome, of course, along with the other clergy of Rome. And since we were already part of the clergy at that time, my companions and I, we thought of going to the Vatican to greet the Pope, and they allowed us inside. And so he gave a conference before that, and then it's like an audience for the clergy of Rome. And then we were surprised, one by one, we were allowed to greet our Holy Father. And he was there. And that was something really memorable for me. I prepared to wear my best before that. And together with others, we were admitted through the bronze door of the Vatican. And we were led by Swiss guards through the marble halls until we reached the hall where the Pope would hold the audience. And so we seated ourselves, and then we waited. And as I told you, there were a lot of discourses, and of course we listened to the Pope, who delivered a written speech, and then after that he spoke spontaneously. And then came the awaited moment. We all fell in line and waited to greet the Pope personally. I had wanted to greet the Pontiff with words like greetings from the Filipino people and the Salesians, but the moment I knelt before him, I was speechless, in ecstasy. And I looked at his eyes, and he looked kindly at me. It was a moment I will always savor. It was a day when I blurted out what men and women were saying in 1995. I can die now, for I have met the Pope. Much like the Nunc Dimittis of Simeon in Luke 2:29-32. And you see, I have rehearsed saying some words to the Pontiff, but as I said, I was speechless. And there was another time that I was before him, and that was the next year, the ad limine visit of Bishop Cantillas. But in both cases, I wasn't able to say a word. In both times, his eyes looked into mine with a lot of fatherly tenderness. And beneath that body that shook with Parkinson's disease, everything admirable shines out. An intelligent, sharp, and deep, a personality warm and gentle, a spirit that fights, that raged against the dying of the light, in the words of Dylan Thomas, especially seen when he was among the strongest voices against the war in Iraq at that time. And I do remember his words, "Non c'è justitia senza pace." There's no justice without peace. And he was really fighting for peace. And he was against the war. He was the one who prepared us to face the new millennium. And we're now 20 years into it. And he was a figure so strong that we were inspired by him. Even in his infirmity, we would say, this is our leader. And now, what's beautiful is, he is a saint. And he intercedes for us. And I do wish to remind everybody that for Don Bosco, the Pope's words are really imperative for us. And we do remember the popes throughout the years. Now we have Pope Francis. And we continue praying for him as how we prayed for John Paul II when he was still alive among us. And just to connect this, is very special because he introduced the luminous mysteries, that great devotion that he had to our Blessed Mother. Here in the month of the Holy Rosary, let us continue meditating upon these mysteries, remembering one who is always also devoted to him, all his life, all his being, totus tuus, given to our Blessed Mother. Once again, I'd like to ask God's blessings for each one of you, and good night, dear friends.